In the last class, we learned about features of developed money market. Next, we'll learn about the functions of money market. Look at the first function. It facilitates economic development through provision of short-term funds to industrial and other sectors. നമുക്കറിയാം money market is basically short-term funds providing the market. So for industries or any other sector, they can get short-term funds through money market, which will help for economic development of the country. Second, it provides a mechanism to achieve equilibrium between demand and supply of short-term funds, right? You need always market forces like demand and supply. You need a market where these forces can, determine the price or determine the rates. When both of them reaches an equilibrium point, ആ പോയിന്റിലാണ് we determined the rate അല്ലെങ്കിൽ price അല്ലേ. Third, it facilitates effective implementation of RBI's monetary policy. So RBI implements monetary policy by കാരണം in case economy കൂടുതൽ supply of money ഉണ്ട്, that is inflation, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ കുറവ് supply of money ഉണ്ട്, deflation. Both these situations are not good. It should be a neutral situation അല്ലേ. അപ്പോൾ RBI uses all these money market instruments like repo rate, open market operations. So RBI uses these money market instruments to control inflation. So to take necessary monetary policies to control inflation. Fourth, it provides ample avenues for short-term funds with fair returns to investors. Investors might have savings with them, huge amount of savings with them. So it is a good avenue for them to invest their amount where they'll get fair returns. It instills financial discipline in commercial banks. Yeah, this money market is regulated by RBI. So these instruments are also regulated by RBI, and commercial banks are the major players or the major participants of this money market. And commercial banks are also regulated by RBI. So when there is a regulation, there is financial discipline. At the point, it provides funds to meet short-term needs, right? So here, if the borrowers require to meet some of their short-term needs, they can use these money market instruments. It enhances capital formation through savings and investment, right? Investors-ne saving ചെയ്യാൻ encourage ചെയ്യുന്നു. അവർക്ക് സേവ് ചെയ്തിട്ട് ആ എമൗണ്ട് ഇൻവെസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യാനായിട്ട് എൻകറേജ് ചെയ്യുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ അവിടെ ക്യാപിറ്റൽ ഫോർമേഷൻ ഉണ്ടാകുന്നു. നെക്സ്റ്റ്, ഷോർട്ട് ടേം അലോക്കേഷൻ ഓഫ് ഫണ്ട്സ് ഇസ് മെയ്ഡ് പോസിബിൾ ത്രൂ interbanking transactions and money market instruments, right? There are interbanking, means between bank transactions will be there. So here, these funds are properly allocated. These savings of, many people are properly invested in all these money market instruments and or allocated in all these short-term funds. So there is no idle, resources left. It helps in employment generation, right? Money market in financial institutions which deal with these banks, commercial banks, NBFCs, and many others. So it helps for employment generation. It provides funds to government to meet its deficit. So government is one of the major borrowers in this money market. So avarku to meet their deficits, okay, for making public expenditure, pala karyangalkum they need funds. So to meet their deficits, when they're short of funds, government can borrow from money market. It helps to control inflation. നേരത്തെ പറഞ്ഞില്ലേ നമ്മൾ, അതായത് RBI uses monetary policy by mainly to control inflation. So it uses money market instruments for this purpose, to control inflation. It provides a stable source of funds to banks in addition to deposits, allowing alternative financing structures and competition. Like banks usually they get funds in the form of deposits from public. പക്ഷേ if they require additional funds, they can even use money market instruments to meet their requirements, to source, maybe to deposit their surplus or to even borrow money to meet their deficits, or if they have any requirements. So these money market provides alternative financing structure. And it encourages other players also, like NBFCs and other players also, other financial institutions also. So there is a competition also. So when there is a competition, the market becomes more efficient. Next, it encourages the development of non-bank intermediaries, thus increasing competition for funds. You have many NBFCs now. Savers get a wide range of savings instruments to select from and invest their savings. So there are many money market instruments with different features or serving different purpose. So you can choose the instrument accordingly. Next, we'll see the importance of money market. The first one, development of capital market. So both these capital markets and money market should coexist. Now, this short-term interest rate in money market has an influence in the interest on long-term lending and resource mobilization in capital market. Because if the capital market requires short-term funds, അങ്ങനെ requirement ഉണ്ടാകുമ്പോൾ they can approach money market. So രണ്ടും ഒരുമിച്ച് വേണം. Okay, both are actually interdependent or related with each other. So you need to have a developed money market for the smooth development of capital market. All right. Because the interest rates and money market instruments have an influence on the capital market instruments also. That is, both are actually very related. All right. So, we have two types of market, money market and capital market, right? The two types. And both these markets should coexist. Second importance, financing trade. So money market facilitates trade, both domestic trade and international trade. That is, all these bills of exchange discount cheyanite, we have the bill market. Adupole we have a lot of acceptance houses and discount houses or discount markets to finance foreign trade, especially in the bills discount cheyanum. You might have heard of facilities like forfeiting and the import export. Okay, അത്തരം trade facilitate cheyanite money market is important. Next is financing industry. So we know working capital requirement. Working capital requirement is short-term funds വേണം, right? Maybe to buy a stock or for such short-term requirements. We need working capital. പിന്നെ വേറൊരു കാര്യം എന്താ? We learned earlier that short-term interest rates have an influence on the long-term interest rates of the capital market. So even if they're acquiring long-term loans and long-term funds from capital market, I think the interest rate will also be influenced by these money markets. So avadi money market comes to the role in financing industry. All right. Next, it helps commercial banks. So these commercial banks, you have they can invest their surplus into various money market instruments, and if they have an immediate requirement, they can even take it back. So here it makes the commercial banks more self-sufficient, because if they have in surplus, they can invest it, and if they have an immediate requirement, like easily it is, they can take it back, they can recall it. So this makes commercial banks self-sufficient. And commercial banks have to meet statutory requirements like CRR, okay, SLR, so they can use these money market instruments to meet these statutory requirements. CRR maintain cheyanum, SLR maintain cheyanum, CRR cash reserve ratio. Banks have to keep a reserve in cash in RBIs. In liquid assets like gold, they have to keep reserves in RBI. So other maintain cheyanite, they can use these money market instruments. And if they have excess, amounts, reserves or funds, they can deposit it in money market instruments which are very liquid, which are very highly liquid. You see, they are very short term and good. So in case they require these funds back also, they can immediately access them. All right. Pinna varudana helps central bank. That is, it helps for the smooth functioning. central bank uses these money market instruments for its smooth functioning. All right, it even controls the commercial banks based on this money market. Major thing is it controls inflation using money market instruments. So money market instruments and money market is regulated by RBI. So it helps RBI to take decisions. Next is guide and help to government. Now when the government has to control inflation, inflation is a trouble for the economy. So when the government have to control inflation, they can do it with the help of RBI by implementing changes in the monetary policy. And similarly, if the government needs funds, they can also borrow it from the money market. And finally, encourages savings and investment. Very simple. Basically, marketing dinana. So that people save their surplus amount and they invest it in productive avenues. And hence there will be capital formation. So it encourages savings and investment and helps in transferring funds from one sector to another. The sector which require funds, അങ്ങനെ transfer of funds and mobilization of funds, etc. is done with the help of money market. So till now, നമ്മൾ പഠിച്ചത് money market ആണ്, the main money market. And we learned that this money market has various sub-markets. Alright? അതിലെ ഫസ്റ്റ് സബ് മാർക്കറ്റ് ആണ് കോൾ മണി മാർക്കറ്റ്. സോ ഈ മാർക്കറ്റിൽ മെയിൻ ആയിട്ട് എന്തായിരിക്കും ഡീൽ ചെയ്യുക? കോൾ മണി ഇൻസ്ട്രുമെൻ്റ് ആയിരിക്കും വിൽ ബി ഡീലിംഗ് ഇൻ ദിസ് മാർക്കറ്റ്. ദിസ് ഇൻസ്ട്രുമെൻറ്റ് ഇസ് ഓൾസോ കോൾഡ് ആസ് call money is also called as loans or money at call and short notice. You might have heard this in corporate accounting if you have learned the balance sheet of banks. And the rate at which funds are borrowed and lent in this market is called as call money rate. So call money is also called as loans or money at call and short notice, and these are very very short term loans. Okay, it could be for an overnight, that means athrin koch hours, like in the night, overnight, or it could be even 24 hours, or for maximum of 7 days. Okay, that is the term period of this call money, maximum 7 days, or it could be even an overnight also. And they can be, this call money can be recalled തിരിച്ച്, they can ask the amount back on demand or at shortest possible notice. That's short notice. It could be recalled on demand or at shortest possible notice. And collateral securities are not required for availing these loans. They don't insist for collateral securities to provide these loans. Now we learned the features of call money market to get a better idea of what call money market is. The first one is the call money market enables banks and institutions to even out their day-to-day deficits and surpluses of money. So if they have day-to-day, അത്രയും short period ഉള്ള day-to-day deficits ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ, or if they have surpluses to be invested for very very short period, banks and such institutions can use call money market. Second, commercial banks and cooperative banks and primary dealers are allowed to borrow and lend in this market for adjusting their cash reserve requirements. So basically banks can borrow and lend. So here the major players banks are, because banks can borrow and lend. If they need funds, they can borrow from other banks, or if they have surplus, they can lend their amount in this market and adjust their cash reserve requirements. Next, specified all India financial institutions, mutual funds, and certain specified entities are allowed to access call or notice money only as lenders. That is, they can only lend amount as call money. They cannot borrow. So there are all India financial institutions, mutual funds, and such entities. There are specified entities which can only act as lenders. So here banks can only borrow. In short, these are interbank market. Look, it is a complete interbank market. Hence, non-bank entities are not allowed access to these market. Okay. So here, the major players are banks. Only banks can borrow and lend. and there is certain